All right, we got so much to get to. Let's Trevor Bauer. Okay, he's been on paid leave. They keep extending it. Today was his order of protection hearing, right, against the woman who asked for us. Can you give us an update on what happened today and Trevor Bauer and where he stands?
Sure. So today is when the hearing process started, and it's estimated to go across a couple of different days, I should say. And today it was to determine if she's going to get a restraining order for the next 5 years. So basically, this woman testified, his accuser, and they were supposed to cross-examine her this afternoon, and it's unclear if they actually did, but both sets of attorneys got to do opening arguments.
Did we lose you, Amy? No,
I'm right here.
Okay. So you're not sure if it. Well, you said it's going to go on for a few days. So that's a normal process in something like this?
Well, it seems that it is. Sometimes it can be shorter, sometimes longer. It really depends on how many people are going to testify. And it seems that she may have about 5 or 6 people testifying on her behalf. Another thing that happened today is that her side requested that a sex assault expert be allowed to testify. And this is something that the judge said okay to, even though Bauer's camp tried to oppose it. Now, Bauer, at the beginning of the hearing, he tried to get a continuance saying that he was dumped about 600 pages of medical records at the last minute, and they haven't had a chance to review them, but that was denied. So his camp's going to have to get their act together, go through all those medical records, and he's going to have to decide whether he wants to testify, which his attorney may not want him to do, because if he does, anything that he says can be used against him in a subsequent case if, in fact, there ends up being any criminal charges.
What do you anticipate happening in this case? Because it's a lot of smoke, and where there's smoke, there seems to be fire. And I just read something where it was a woman that he supposedly dated for 3 years, and she possibly went through the same thing that this young lady has gone through with Bauer as well.
Yeah, I think the similarities were really just shocking. The Washington Post, I believe it is, did a really extensive investigation that Bauer criticized. He said that they basically went on a mission to try to contact anyone and everyone that he's ever dated to the point where he was accusing the journalism outlet of essentially harassing people to try to find or dig up dirt. If, in fact, what they're reporting is true, they were successful in finding an uncannily similar case where there was a woman in Ohio that said that basically he, had rough sex with her without consent, that he choked her, that he punched her. There are pictures that the Post says that it got that show bruises on the woman's face and blood in her eyes.
Oh.
And, of course, he went and completely denied this and said that it's preposterous. But it's just really interesting that this reportedly happened June 2020, so about a year ago. Very close proximity, very similar factual allegations. Of course, those allegations never went anywhere because she did get an ex parte TRO as well, but she never pursued that. So it ended up just dissolving after a couple weeks. And she never ended up filing anything. Nothing really came of that. So while obviously he is completely innocent in that case because he wasn't convicted of anything,
right,
the allegations are just very, very similar.
Our guest is Amy Dash, of course, Fox Sports Radio legal analyst here on the Odd Couple Fox Sports Radio. Amy, let's switch over to Deshaun Watson and what's happening in his case. Give us an update.
Well, it's really interesting. We're not sure what's going to happen with Deshaun Watson. The latest, which is really shocking, is that apparently Mark Berman from Fox said that there are going to be subpoenas handed out in a grand jury investigation that's allegedly going to be headed up by the human trafficking unit of the district attorney's office. So that is just a fascinating development because, first of all, you normally never hear about grand jury investigations till after they're over. Usually the person who's the subject of the investigation isn't even told, and suddenly there's an indictment handed down, and it's just shocking to that person, shocking to everybody else. Rarely do you ever hear of an investigation that's going to happen prior to the grand jury making a decision. And what the grand jury does is they're going to be only hearing the prosecutor's evidence from the police department. So we can assume that if they've proceeded on to that step, the police investigation has come up with most of what it's been able to find and is almost complete, if not fully complete. And then the prosecutor will present that evidence to the grand jury, and they'll subpoena people that they want to testify. Watson's attorney is saying that he doesn't believe Watson will be subpoenaed to testify. So then the grand jury will just decide whether they feel that there's enough evidence to bring felony charges. So if there is, in fact, a grand jury investigation, that means that they are deciding upon felony charges. Now, they can always say, okay, we've decided that you could bring misdemeanor charges, or they can say, go ahead, bring felony charges to the prosecutor, and later on it could always be pled down to a misdemeanor. But what it really means is that the prosecutor's going there and asking for felony charges. The prosecutor feels that he or she has enough from the police department to try to bring felony charges against Deshaun Watson. And it's going to be a decision that's made by this grand jury, which is par for the course in Texas.
Hey, Amy, help. Let me follow up here, TJ. Amy, when people hear trafficking, and you explained it to us the last time you were on with Chris and I, because people, when they think of trafficking, they think of bringing some young girls from another country across the border to ply the sex trade. But that's not really the definition. Help me if I'm wrong. If he paid for somebody to come from another state, write their ticket or whatever, and had sex with them, that falls under trafficking, or am I wrong?
So you're right, mainly. So what you need elements that you have to meet, elements of the alleged crime. And so each crime has a statute. It basically explains what you need to prove that crime occurred. And there are different things within that statute called elements. So the elements here would be trafficking. But trafficking, even though it sounds like you have to transport, actually has many different definitions. You can meet the element of trafficking by recruiting, by transporting. You don't have to transport. He could just solicit. He could recruit someone to come. They think that they're coming to do a job, for example, like a massage. But the underlying purpose of that recruitment is that he wants to sexually exploit them. He wants them to commit a sex act, and they don't know it, but he knows it. So
Right.
I'm not saying that happened. That's what he did. But if, in fact, he gave money, right, to somebody and solicited them, recruited them, and used some sort of force or coercion or imbalance of power where he had more power and they were feeling threatened or intimidated, or that they would be harmed, not just physically. It doesn't have to be physically. It could be that their reputation would be harmed, that they would be financially harmed, that they couldn't get out of the situation, any type of fear like that. That could also fall under human trafficking, depending on the circumstances. But of course, if you have an element of like you're flying somebody somewhere, plus you pay, plus they feel threatened, plus a sexual act occurs, then you're really in trouble with that one. That's going to be a lot harder to overcome.
TJ, you got one more?
No, man. This stuff is just so crazy.
It really is.
God.
And
I'll give you one more thing, guys, though.
Okay.
I'll give you a little teaser here. I've been told some things that I can't go public with yet, but I'll just say the fact that he was reaching out to all these women online, on the internet, that there was this pattern, so to speak, that these women are alleging, that he did the same thing, reach out on Instagram, say he wanted the massage, get them to the place where he allegedly wanted the massage, and then try to pull something else and paying them for that, and either requesting sex or what have you. This is what they're accusing him of. Obviously, he's denying that. But I would just say the fact that it was on the internet is really, really interesting to me. There's a lot of attention right now to how people are behaving on the internet and what they're using it for. There's Instagram, the Facebook, these different platforms. Think about it from a perspective of, and this is a totally different scenario, but it's a little bit related, not so much to his case, but think about if I'm an online predator and I'm trying to find underage girls, right? I'm using Facebook and Twitter and trying to be someone that I'm not, just to get them in a place where I feel I can put them in a position where they're going to do what I want them to do. think about that scenario of the online element, because I think it's a whole new terrain under the law, and there's a lot of enforcement efforts around stopping that type of abuse of the Internet.
Amy, thank you so much for your knowledge. We appreciate it.